The Undocumented Workers in Toronto report highlights some key issues concerning undocumented people in the city. In particular, we are concerned with Toronto's undocumented residents' inability to access social services in the city. In our recommendations, we use the term access without fear to connote policies that ensure that undocumented people receive social services without fear. In our experience and research, and has been also detailed by the panel before me, we found that undocumented residents have identified fear as a primary reason for inability to access social services. This means not just passing good policies, but ensuring undocumented residents are aware of these policies' existence and know that accountability mechanisms exist if they face problems. Access without fear policies include ensuring the service providers provide services to all residents, regardless of their immigration status, to not inquire about, record, or keep information pertaining to a person's immigration status, and that when a service provider becomes aware of a person's immigration status, the service provider does not communicate that information to any federal authorities. The term access without fear is used instead of don't ask, don't tell, primarily because service providers, agencies, municipal offices, etc., may need to ask questions related to status in order to perform their services, including referring clients to agencies that have access without fear policies. In terms of what we mean by undocumented people, those are non-status people, people with precarious immigration status, like temporary foreign workers, people without full documentation of their immigration status, and people without any documentation of their immigration status. At the end of my deputation, I'm going to pass on these tiny little booklets. They're not too long, but I'm also just going to briefly go over them. And deputants following me will sort of support many of these recommendations with respect to their own sectors, health, legal, and so on. In terms of recommendations, the city should conduct an internal audit with community consultation of all city-funded services and agencies, and then produce a report on the application of the Access Without Fear policy. The report should locate the gaps and inconsistencies in the application of the Access Without Fear policy and should contribute to the development of an accountability framework for this policy. Organizations should implement Access Without Fear policy consistently across the city and should clearly communicate that they follow this policy to the communities they serve. This is so that Torontonians trying to access services can do so without fear. The city or city organizations should provide sensitivity training to frontline staff and managers of services and agencies with a clear policy on repercussions and accountability if services are refused, i.e., not just counting on the goodness of people's hearts. The city should establish a clear and accessible review and complaints process based on consultation with communities to address gaps in implementation of the policy. The city should require service providers and agencies to have an Access Without Fear policy in place as a condition for receiving city funding. The city should make public the consistent application of the Access Without Fear policy so that undocumented people are aware of this policy. The city should advocate the province to implement the Access Without Fear policy for provincially funded services in order to ensure that healthcare policy, community housing, ODSP, and OW are available to undocumented residents. And finally, the city should advocate with the Government of Canada, the federal government, to implement a full and accessible regularization program for all residents of the city, for all of Canada as well, and revoke the 4-in, 4-out rule for temporary foreign workers. And with that, I think I have about 18 seconds left.